Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force battleship Taeguk, watching the alien fleet approach Europa Station. The massive ships looked like giant metal spiders moving through space. Their dark hulls reflected no light, making them appear like holes in the stars themselves. "Sir, we count 47 enemy vessels," reported Commander Park Min-ho from his station. His voice stayed calm, but Hyun could see the worry in his eyes. The Earth fleet had only 12 ships defending the station. "How many civilians are still on Europa?" Hyun asked. "About 30,000, sir. The evacuation ships are loading as fast as they can, but they need more time." Hyun nodded. He had fought the Vorthak aliens for 3 months now. They never took prisoners. They never showed mercy. Every human world they touched became silent forever. But they had made one mistake. They had underestimated how far humans would go to protect each other. "All ships, this is Captain Hyun." He spoke into his communicator. "Form defensive line Alpha. We hold them here until every civilian is safe." The alien fleet moved like a pack of hunters. Their ships were faster and stronger than anything humans had built. Energy beams cut through space, tearing apart the first line of Earth ships in minutes. The destroyer Seoul exploded in a ball of fire. The cruiser Busan tried to ram an alien ship but was vaporized before it could hit. "Sir, evacuation ships are away," Min-ho called out. "All civilians are clear." "Good," Hyun said. "Now get our people out of here." "What about the Taeguk, sir?" Hyun looked at the tactical display. 8 alien ships were moving toward them. The Taeguk's weapons were almost empty. The engines were damaged. But the ship still had one thing that could hurt the enemy. "Take the crew to the escape pods," Hyun ordered. "I'm staying behind." "Sir, you can't." "That's an order, Commander. Get them out." Min-ho stared at his captain for a moment. Then he saluted and ran to evacuate the crew. Hyun watched the escape pods launch one by one. Soon he was alone on the bridge of his dying ship. The alien ships surrounded the Taeguk like sharks around wounded prey. Hyun smiled grimly and activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. But instead of a quick explosion, he set it for a slow reactor overload. The aliens would try to board his ship first. They always wanted to capture human technology. Sure enough, the Vorthak ships moved closer. Hyun could see their boarding tubes extending toward his hull. He waited until they were all connected, then triggered the overload. The explosion tore through the center of the alien formation. The Taeguk's reactor sent waves of energy that crippled 3 alien ships and damaged 4 others. Hyun's escape pod shot away from the blast, but the shockwave sent it spinning toward the enemy fleet. When Hyun woke up, he was in a metal room with no windows. The air smelled strange, like burning copper. His head hurt and his left arm was broken. The room was too small for a human to stand up straight. The door opened with a hiss. 3 aliens walked in, and Hyun got his first close look at the Vorthak. They were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old leather. Their faces had too many angles, and their eyes were black holes that seemed to drink in light. They wore armor that moved like liquid metal. The biggest one spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Hyun did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was asking questions. "Lee Hyun, Captain, Earth Defense Force," he said clearly. It was all he would give them. The alien spoke again, this time in broken human language. "You destroy ships. Many dead." "Why?" "Because they were trying to kill innocent people," Hyun answered. The alien tilted its head like a confused bird. It spoke to the others in their own language. They seemed surprised by something. "You stay ship. Could run. Why stay?" Hyun looked directly into those black eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do." The aliens talked among themselves for a long time. Finally, the big one looked back at Hyun. "I am War Commander Vextar. You are different. Most humans run or beg. You choose death to save others. This is interesting." "It's called honor," Hyun said. "You should try it sometime." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Honor. Yes, we know this word. We killed it long ago." The war commander leaned closer. "You will tell us about human defenses. You will tell us where your fleets hide. You will tell us how to break your worlds quickly, so fewer die. No. Hyun said simply. We have ways to make you speak. I'm sure you do. But the answer will still be no. Vextar stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke to the other aliens. They seemed to be arguing about something. Finally, Vextar turned back to Hyun. Usually we kill human prisoners quickly, but you are different. We will study you. Learn what makes you choose death over life, pain over comfort. Perhaps we can use this knowledge to break other humans faster. The aliens left and Hyun was alone again. Through the walls he could hear the sounds of a large ship, engines humming, footsteps in corridors, voices speaking in the alien language. He thought about his crew. Had they made it back to Earth? Was Commander Minho safe? Had the evacuation succeeded? 30,000 people were alive because his crew had bought them time. That was enough. That had to be enough. But as the ship carried him deeper into alien space, Hyun began to realize something. The Vorthek had made another mistake. They thought studying him would help them understand human weakness. Instead, they were about to learn about human strength. They wanted to know what made him choose sacrifice over survival. They would find out. But the lesson might not be what they expected. In the darkness of his cell, Lee Hyun began to plan. Not for escape, not for revenge, but for something much more dangerous. He began to plan how to teach an empire of conquerors what it really meant to be human. The Vorthak thought they had captured a weapon they could study and discard. Instead, they had brought aboard the one thing that could destroy them from within. They had captured hope. Hyun woke up in a different cell. This one was larger but still felt like a cage. The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb sound. A small window showed alien stars he did not recognize. A guard brought him food. It was a gray paste that tasted like nothing. The guard was smaller than the war commander, with scars covering its gray skin. When it saw Hyun looking, it made a hissing sound and left quickly. Days passed, maybe weeks. It was hard to tell time without a sun. Guards came and went. Sometimes they brought questions, sometimes they brought pain. They wanted to know about Earth's defenses, about human weapons, about where the surviving fleets were hiding. Hyun told them nothing. They tried many things. They hurt him. They showed him pictures of burning human cities. They promised him comfort if he talked. They threatened him with worse pain if he stayed quiet. Your planet is already dead, Vextar told him during one visit. Your people are scattered like dust in space. Why protect information that no longer matters? Because my people are still out there, Hyun replied. And as long as they're fighting, I won't help you find them. One day the guards took him from his cell and marched him through long corridors. The ship was huge, bigger than any human vessel he had ever seen. They passed rooms full of alien technology he could not understand. Finally, they reached a large chamber with barred walls. Inside were other prisoners. Hyun had expected to see humans. Instead, he found himself looking at creatures he had never imagined. Some looked like giant insects with arms and legs. Others seemed to be made of glowing energy, held together by strange suits. A few looked like walking trees with faces in their bark. Another one, said a voice in accented human language. Hyun turned and saw a man with Asian features sitting in the corner. He was thin and wore the torn remains of a military uniform. I'm Dr. Cho Yuna, the man said. Captured 3 months ago from the colony on Kepler. You? Captain Lee Hyun, Earth Defense Force. Dr. Cho's eyes widened. The Captain Hyun? The one who held Europa Station? News travels fast. Your fight gave 3 colonies time to evacuate. You saved millions. Hyun looked around the prison chamber. There were maybe 50 prisoners of different species. All looked defeated. All looked broken. What is this place? He asked. Prison world called Kethmaran, Dr. Cho explained. The Vorthak bring prisoners here from all over their empire. Most species they just kill. The ones they keep, they want to study us. Learn how we think, how we fight, how to break us faster. Next time A large insect-like creature approached them. It was taller than Yun, with forearms and compound eyes that reflected light like jewels. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. "You are the new human," it said in perfect English. "I am HFY. I have been here 4 years. You speak our language very well," Hyun said. "We learn quickly. It helps us survive. The Vorthak like prisoners who can communicate. We are more useful for their studies." HFY gestured toward the other prisoners. "We are the lucky ones. We represent species the Vorthak found interesting. The rest of our peoples are dead." "How many species?" Hyun asked. "In this prison? 7? In the Empire?" HFY's compound eyes seemed to dim. "We stopped counting after 50. Over the following days, Hyun learned about his fellow prisoners. The insect-like HFY had been warriors and philosophers. The energy beings called Lumari had been master engineers. The tree-like Sylvani had been healers and teachers. All had fought. The Vorthak. All had lost. "Why don't you fight back here?" Hyun asked Dr. Cho one evening. "With what? Against what? Look around, Captain. We're broken people from dead worlds. What's the point?" But Hyun was looking around, and he saw something different than defeat. He saw potential. The HFY were strong and smart. The Lumari could understand technology in ways humans never could. The Sylvani could heal injuries that would kill other species. Even the other species had skills that could be useful. "What if I told you the point was to honor the dead?" Hyun said quietly. Dr. Cho stared at him. "What do you mean?" "Your people, on Kepler, did they die for nothing? Or did they die hoping someone would carry on their fight?" "The fight is over, Captain. We lost. The fight is only over when we stop fighting." A Lumari prisoner drifted closer. Its energy body flickered with interest. "The new human speaks of continuing war. This is impossible. We have no weapons, no ships, no army." "We have something better," Hyun said. "We have each other." "Explain," said HFY, its musical voice curious. Hyun looked around at the faces, watching him. Alien faces, human faces, all showing the same expression. They wanted to hope but were afraid to try. "The Vorthak think they understand us," he said. "They think we're just different types of animals to be caged or killed. But they don't understand the most important thing about intelligent life." "Which is?" asked a Sylvani, its bark-like face creaking as it spoke. "We're stronger together than apart. They rule by fear and domination. We can survive by cooperation and trust." Dr. Cho shook his head. "Captain, this isn't a war. This is a prison. They have all the power." "Do they?" Hyun asked. "They need us alive for their studies. That gives us something to work with. And they've made a mistake. They've put representatives of 7 different species in the same place. 7 different ways of thinking. 7 different sets of skills." He stood up and faced the group. "I'm not talking about escape. I'm not talking about revenge. I'm talking about showing them that they haven't broken us, that they can't break us, that every day we stay true to what we are, we're winning." The prisoners looked at each other. Hyun could see them thinking. He could see the spark of something that had been sleeping for too long. "What do you propose?" asked HFY. "We take care of each other," Hyun said simply. "We share what we have. We protect the weak. We remember our dead by living with honor. We show these conquerors what they destroyed when they killed our worlds." "And if the guards punish us?" asked the Lumari. "Then we face the punishment together, and we show them that some things are worth suffering for." Hyun looked around the chamber again. This time he didn't see defeated prisoners. He saw the survivors of 7 different civilizations. He saw the living memory of billions of dead. He saw an army that didn't know it was an army yet. "My people have a saying," he told them. "Fall 7 times, get up 8. We've all fallen. Now it's time to get up." For the first time in months, some of the prisoners stood a little straighter. For the first time since their capture, they remembered what it felt like to hope. The Vorthak had wanted to study their prisoners. They were about to learn more than they bargained for. 2 years had passed since Hyun arrived on Kethmaran. The prison had changed, though the guards did not seem to notice. Prisoners from different species now worked together. They shared food, knowledge, and hope. HFY taught the others about HFY philosophy and fighting techniques. The Lumari showed how to understand alien technology. The Silvani healed injuries that the guards ignored. Dr. Cho organized medical care using supplies they made from prison materials. And Hyun taught them all something new. He taught them about human ideas of leadership, sacrifice, and fighting, for others instead of just yourself. Today we discuss the concept you call honor, said war scholar Thekfor during one of their regular meetings. The Vorthak scholar was different from the guards. Thinner, with larger eyes, and covered in tattoos that seemed to move in the light. He had been studying Hyun for months, trying to understand why the human would not break. Honor is simple, Hyun replied. It means doing the right thing even when it cost you. This is inefficient, Thekfor said. In war, survival is the only goal that matters. Your honor got your ship destroyed and your crew scattered. My honor saved 30,000 innocent people. And my crew is alive because they followed orders to evacuate. Thekfor made notes on his data pad. You value the lives of strangers over your own survival. This is a genetic defect, yes? A weakness that makes humans easy to defeat. Is it? Hyun asked. Your empire spans thousands of worlds, but you're always fighting rebellions. Why do you think that is? Because conquered species are naturally rebellious. They must be taught their place. Or maybe it's because you rule through fear instead of respect. People will only stay down for so long when you step on them. The scholar paused in his note-taking. You suggest we should show kindness to conquered worlds? I suggest you should consider whether ruling through fear is as strong as you think. It is. These conversations continued for months. Thekfor seemed genuinely curious about human thinking. Sometimes he brought other Vorthak with him, young guards who had never spoken to a prisoner before. They listened as Hyun explained human concepts of loyalty, duty, and protecting the innocent. Your war commander thinks studying us will help you defeat other humans, Hyun told them one day. But what you're really learning is why we fight so hard. Enlighten us, said Thekfor. We don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight because we love something more than we fear dying. We fight for our families, our friends, our communities. That's a kind of strength your empire doesn't understand. A young guard named Vector spoke up. But love makes you weak. It makes you emotional. It clouds your judgment. Does it? Hyun asked. When I stayed behind to destroy my ship, was that weak? When Dr. Cho treats injured prisoners with no reward, is that clouded judgment? When HFY shares food with weaker prisoners, is that emotion making bad decisions? Vector looked uncomfortable. You are protecting others. This is tactical. Yes, it's tactical. It's strategic. It's smart. When people trust you, they fight harder for you. When they know you'll protect them, they'll protect you. When they believe in what you're fighting for, they become stronger than any weapon. The real test came during the plague. A sickness spread through the prison, brought by new arrivals from a distant world. The disease affected different species in different ways. Some prisoners burned with fever, others could not breathe. A few simply collapsed and would not wake up. The guards stayed away, afraid of catching the disease themselves. They brought no medicine, no doctors, no help. We're on our own, Dr. Cho told the prison population. But we're going to get through this together. Hyun organized the effort. The Silvani used their natural healing abilities to fight the infection. The Lumari figured out how to modify the prison's air systems to slow the spread. The HFY used their strength to move the sickest prisoners to better locations. Humans worked alongside aliens they had never seen before. Species that had been enemies before the Vorthak conquest now shared medicine and care. When supplies ran low, the healthy gave their food to the sick. Hyun himself fell ill on the 5th day. As fever burned through his body, he saw Dr. Cho working without sleep to treat everyone who needed help. He saw HFY carrying water to prisoners too weak to move. He saw Lumari energy beings giving parts of their own life force to keep others alive. When Vector brought the daily food delivery, he stopped and stared. Why do they work so hard for each other? the young guard asked Thekvor, who had come to observe. It is their nature, the scholar replied, but he sounded uncertain. Even for prisoners from enemy species? Thekvor watched Akethai gently, feeding a human too weak to hold food. This is unexpected. They could save resources by letting the weakest die, Vekthor continued. It would be more efficient. Yes, it would. But they don't. Even when they're sick themselves, they keep helping others. Thekvor made notes, but his movements were slower than usual. The human spoke of strength through unity. Perhaps we should study this phenomenon more closely. The plague ended after 2 weeks. More prisoners survived than anyone had expected. When the guards finally returned, they found a community that had grown stronger through shared hardship. Remarkable, Thekvor told Hyun during their next meeting. Your survival rate exceeded our projections by 30%. People take better care of each other than they take care of themselves, Hyun explained. That's not a human trait. That's a trait of any species worth saving. Worth saving? The scholar tilted his head. We are discussing survival efficiency, not moral worth. Are we? Your empire destroys species that could have helped you. You waste the knowledge and skills of entire civilizations. You rule through fear when you could lead through respect. Which approach is more efficient? Thekvor was quiet for a long time. You suggest the empire's methods are flawed? I suggest that an empire built on the bones of destroyed civilizations might not be as strong as it thinks it is. That night, Hyun heard guards talking in the corridors. He was learning their language slowly, picking up words and phrases. What he heard surprised him. Some of the guards were asking questions. They wondered why the prisoners had worked so hard to save each other. They wondered if there might be different ways to maintain order. They wondered if the Empire's methods were the only way. Vekthor had been bringing them reports of what he had seen. And those reports were spreading. Hyun smiled in the darkness of his cell. The Vorthak had wanted to study human nature. They were learning all right, but the lesson was spreading far beyond their control. They had thought they were studying weakness. Instead, they were discovering strength they had never imagined. And some of them were beginning to wonder what their empire could become if it embraced that strength instead of trying to destroy it. The teacher was teaching, but the students were not who anyone had expected them to be. 8 years. Hyun had been a prisoner for 8 years when the news came that broke his heart and set his purpose. War Commander Vextar entered the prison chamber with a cruel smile. Behind him, guards carried a large screen that showed images from across the galaxy. Burning worlds, silent space stations, the debris of human fleets floating in the dark. Your Earth is no more, Vextar announced to the prisoners. The human resistance has been crushed. Your species exists now only in scattered groups hiding in the outer systems. Soon even they will be found and eliminated. Hyun stared at the images. His homeworld was a ball of fire. The great cities where he had grown up were ash. Billions of people gone. Dr. Cho sank to his knees, weeping. Other human prisoners cried out in grief and rage. Around the chamber, alien prisoners looked away, remembering their own dead worlds. This is what resistance brings, Vextar continued. Pain, death, the end of everything you love. Submit, and your suffering ends quickly. Fight, and watch everything burn. But as Hyun watched the images, he saw something the war commander missed. In the background of several scenes, human ships were jumping to hyperspace. Evacuation fleets, survivors escaping. The resistance was scattered, but not destroyed. How many survived? He asked quietly. Vextar's smile widened. Does it matter? Thousands, hundreds of thousands. They are insects hiding in the dark corners of space. In time, we will find them all. Then you haven't won, Hyun said. As long as any of my people are free, the fight continues. Your people have no hope, no home, no future. They have something better, Hyun replied, standing slowly. They have each other, and they have the knowledge that their sacrifice meant something. That night the prison was quiet except for the sound of weeping. Hyun sat in his cell, thinking about everyone he had lost. His crew, his friends, his family. But as the hours passed, his grief transformed into something harder. Purpose. A soft sound at his cell door made him look up. HFY stood outside, somehow having opened the lock without setting off alarms. How? Hyun asked. Lumara has been studying the security systems for years, the HFY replied. She learned to interface with Vorthak technology during the plague when we needed to modify the air systems. Why are you here? Because today we learned that hope is not enough. Today we learned that we must act. HFY stepped aside, and Hyun saw other figures in the corridor. Dr. Cho. The Lumari called Lumara, her energy form flickering with determination. The Silvani healer, Sylvan. Prisoners from all 7 species represented in the chamber. We have been talking, HFY continued. For 8 years you have taught us to be strong together. You have shown us that protecting each other makes us more than the sum of our parts. Now we ask, what comes next? What do you mean? Hyun asked, though he thought he knew. You said the fight continues as long as any of your people are free. But what about our people? What about the billions who died on our worlds? Do we honor them by living as prisoners or by making sure no other species suffers as we have suffered? Hyun looked around at the faces watching him. They were no longer the broken prisoners he had met 8 years ago. They were survivors who had found strength in unity. They were representatives of destroyed civilizations who had chosen to stand together instead of falling apart. You're talking about rebellion, he said. We are talking about freedom, corrected Lomara, her translated voice humming with electronic harmonics. Not just for us, but for every species still under Vorthak rule. Dr. Cho stepped forward. Captain, I've been listening to the guards. This prison planet isn't just a research facility. It's a supply depot for the Outer Rim territories. Ships come and go regularly. If we could take control, we would have ships, finished Sylvan, and weapons, and the ability to reach other worlds. Hyun considered this. Even if we could escape, what then? We're a few hundred prisoners against an empire of thousands of worlds. Are we? Asked HFY. Or are we the spark that lights a fire across the galaxy? Over the next several days, they planned. Lumara had indeed learned to interface with Vorthak computer systems. She could disable security in key areas, but only for short periods. HFY and the other HFY had been secretly training the prisoners in combat techniques. Sylvan had been growing medicines and toxins using plant matter smuggled from the kitchens. Most surprisingly, they had allies among the guards. Vector had been watching the prisoners for years. He had seen how they cared for each other during the plague. He had listened to Hyun's words about leadership through service instead of domination. He had begun to question everything the Empire had taught him. There are others like me, he told Hyun during a secret meeting. Young guards who have seen how you treat each other. We have been talking, quietly, carefully, but we have been talking. How many? Hyun asked. On this planet? Perhaps 50 out of 300, in the wider empire. Vector's expression was hard to read behind his face armor. Who knows, but if someone gave us a reason to act. The uprising began 3 days later. Lumara disabled the security systems at exactly midnight prison time. HFY led teams of prisoners in capturing key locations. Sylvan's toxins knocked out guards who remained loyal to the Empire. And Vector opened the armory to equip the rebels with Vorthak weapons. The fighting was brief, but intense. Most guards were caught completely off guard. They had never imagined that prisoners from different species could coordinate so effectively. They had never seen anything like the combined tactics Hyun had taught his allies. HFY warriors provided strength and close combat skills. Lumari technicians controlled computers and communications. Silvani healers kept the rebels fighting, even when wounded. Humans provided strategic thinking and leadership. Within 6 hours, the prison complex was under rebel control. What now? Dr. Cho asked as they stood in the command center, looking at displays showing the entire planet. Now we find out how far this rebellion can spread, Hyun replied. He turned to Vector. You said there were other guards with doubts. Can you contact them? Some. There are garrison troops in the other facilities. If they see that resistance, is possible. And the ships? Hyun asked Lumara. 12 vessels currently docked. I can access their systems, but I cannot pilot them alone. You won't be alone, Hyun promised. He looked around at the faces surrounding him. Former prisoners, former guards, former enemies who had become allies. We're not just breaking out of prison, he told them. We're starting a war to free every species under Vorthak rule, a war to make sure no other worlds burn the way ours did. And if we lose? Asked Sylvan. Then we lose fighting for something worth dying for, Hyun replied. But I don't think we're going to lose, because we have something the Empire doesn't. Which is? Asked Vector. We have each other, and we've learned that together, we're stronger than any force built on fear and domination. The rebellion spread across Kethmaran like wildfire. By the end of the week, the entire planet was under rebel control. Ships full of freed prisoners began jumping to hyperspace, carrying the message to other worlds. The Liberation Alliance had been born, and at its heart was a simple idea that would shake the Vorthak Empire to its foundations. That beings fighting for each other were stronger than beings fighting for conquest. The prisoner had become a liberator, the teacher had become a general, and the lesson he taught was spreading across the galaxy, one freed world at a time. The Liberation Alliance grew faster than anyone had dared to hope. What began as a prison break on one world became a rebellion that spread across dozens of systems. Ships full of freed prisoners carried Hyun's message to labor camps, slave worlds, and oppressed colonies throughout Vorthak space. Hyun stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, looking at the tactical display that showed their growing territory. 57 worlds had declared independence. 12 Vorthak garrison fleets had defected. Hundreds of thousands of beings from 30 different species had joined their cause. The Vorthak High Command is finally taking us seriously, reported Fleet Admiral Keshai from her station. The former prisoner now wore the blue uniform of the Alliance with rank badges that showed her new position as Hyun's second-in-command. How seriously? Hyun asked. They're sending Warfleet Dominus to crush us. 300 ships, including their newest battle carriers. Tech Commander Lumara's energy form flickered with concern. That is 3 times our current fleet strength. Even with our new allies, we cannot match their firepower. We don't need to match their firepower, Hyun said calmly. We just need to be smarter than they are. The Alliance had grown through liberation, not conquest. Every world they freed had a choice: join the fight or remain neutral. Most chose to join, but not because they were forced to. They joined because they believed in what the Alliance represented. Status report from the recruitment centers? Hyun asked. Bio-Admiral Sylvan, whose rank reflected her role in managing the Alliance's medical and supply networks, gestured to her displays. We have volunteers from 43 species now. Each brings unique skills and knowledge. The engineering teams alone have improved our ship designs by 30%. This was the Alliance's greatest strength. Instead of forcing conquered peoples to fight for them, they asked for volunteers who wanted to fight for freedom. Instead of imposing human tactics on alien crews, they learned from each species and combined their strengths. Kethai warriors served alongside human marines, each learning from the other's combat techniques. Lumari engineers worked with Vorthak defectors to upgrade Alliance technology. Sylvani healers trained medical teams from dozens of worlds to treat injuries across species barriers. Sir, called Communications Officer Park Jaeon from his station. We're receiving a transmission from the Vorthak fleet. They want to talk. Put it through, Hyun ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of a massive Vorthak warship. War Commander Vextar stood in the center, his armor now decorated with symbols of high rank. So, the little human has become a warlord, Vextar said, his voice carrying the same cruel amusement as always. Hello, Vextar, Hyun replied calmly. Still enjoying the view from your cage? Cage, I command the mightiest fleet in Vorthak space. I have the power to burn your pathetic alliance from the galaxy. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trapped in a cycle of violence that's slowly destroying your empire. Vextars, Expression darkened. You speak of cycles. You who started a war that has killed millions? I didn't start this war. I'm trying to end it. The only question is whether it ends with freedom for all species, or with the complete collapse of the Vorthak Empire. Surrender now, and I will grant your followers quick deaths, Vextar snarled. Continue this rebellion, and I will make them suffer as I made your homeworld suffer. You can try, Hyun said. But you're fighting a different kind of war now. You're not facing scattered resistance groups anymore. You're facing an alliance of species who have learned to fight together. Species fight together under our rule as well. They serve the Empire. They serve because they're afraid. We fight because we choose to. There's a difference. The transmission ended, and Hyun turned to his command staff. They represented 7 different species, but they worked together as smoothly as any human crew he had ever commanded. Analysis? He asked. Vextar is angry, observed Kesai. This makes him dangerous but also predictable. He will attack directly, using superior numbers to crush us quickly. Our advantages? Hyun continued. Speed, coordination, and motivation, answered Lumara. Our crews fight for each other. Theirs fight because they must. Tactical options? Commander Vekthor, the former Vorthak guard who now served as the Alliance's intelligence chief, stepped forward. The Dominus fleet is strong, but it's also overconfident. They expect us to fight like the old resistance groups, hit and run, then scatter when they respond with force. But we won't do that, Hyun said. No, sir. We'll fight like an alliance. Combined tactics, mutual support, coordinated strategy across multiple fronts. The battle for the Kepler Nebula lasted 3 days. Vextar brought his massive fleet expecting to crush the Alliance through sheer firepower. Instead, he found himself facing an enemy unlike any the Vorthak had ever encountered. Alliance ships fought in mixed species formations, human tactical thinking combined with Kethai aggression and Lumari technical precision. When Vorthak ships tried to overwhelm single targets, they found themselves surrounded by coordinated squadrons that covered each other's weaknesses. More importantly, the Alliance wasn't just fighting for territory. They were fighting for the right of all species to choose their own destiny. Sir, the Vorthak Third Wing is breaking formation, reported Sensor Officer Kim Daeun. They're pulling back toward the nebula edge. They're not retreating, Hyun realized. They're trying to draw us into a trap. But the Alliance had learned from 30 different species' military traditions. They had tactics the Vorthak had never seen before. When Vextar tried to spring his trap, he found empty space. The Alliance fleet had anticipated his move and positioned themselves to attack his flanks instead. The decisive moment came when a group of Vorthak ships found themselves cut off from their main fleet. Instead of destroying them, Hyun opened a communication channel. Vorthak ships, this is Admiral Hyun of the Liberation Alliance. You have fought bravely, but you are outnumbered and cut off. Surrender, and you will be treated with honor. We do not surrender to rebels, came the reply. I'm not asking you to surrender to rebels, I'm asking you to join the fight for freedom. Your freedom, and the freedom of every species in this galaxy. There was a long pause. Then, slowly, the Vorthak ships powered down their weapons. We accept your terms, said their commander. It was the first time in Vorthak history that an entire battle group had defected to the enemy, but it would not be the last. As word of the battle spread, more Vorthak units began to question their orders. Entire planets declared independence. Species that had been loyal to the Empire for generations joined the Alliance. Status report, Hyun asked as they returned to Alliance space. 89 worlds now flying Alliance colors, reported Sylvan. Recruitment is up 400%, and we're receiving requests for aid from resistance groups in the core systems. The core systems? Hyun was surprised. Those were the oldest and most loyal Vorthak territories. It seems our message is spreading faster than their ability to contain it, said Kesahai with what might have been a smile. Hyun looked at the tactical display again. The Alliance controlled a significant portion of former Vorthak space, but the Empire's core remained strong. The final battle was still ahead of them. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "It's time to go home." "Sir," asked Park Gaeon, "what if the human survivors don't trust us? What if they see us as just another alien invasion force?" Hyun thought about this question. He thought about Admiral Kim Ji-won and Commander Park Min-ho, if they were still alive. He thought about how they would react to seeing their former captain commanding an alien fleet. "Then we'll have to prove to them what we proved to ourselves," he said finally. "That species fighting together are stronger than species fighting alone, that the only way to truly win a war is to turn your enemies into allies. And if they won't listen?" "They'll listen," Hyun said with quiet confidence. "Because deep down, every human understands the dream we're fighting for. A galaxy where no species has to live in fear. Where cooperation is stronger than conquest. Where everyone has the right to choose their own path." The Alliance fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying that dream toward humanity's home system. Behind them, the Vorthak Empire continued to crack and crumble as more worlds joined the rebellion. The prisoner had become a liberator. The liberator had become an admiral, and now the admiral was going home to finish what he had started 10 years ago, in the desperate battle for Europa Station. He was going home to show his own species what he had learned from the stars, that the greatest strength wasn't in conquering your enemies, but in giving them a reason to stand beside you instead of against you. 10 years. It had been exactly 10 years since Captain Lee Hyun had sacrificed his ship to save the civilians at Europa Station. Now he stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. What he saw broke his heart. Mars was a dead rock, its terraforming domes shattered and cold. The asteroid mining stations were silent hulks floating in the dark. Earth itself was barely recognizable, wrapped in clouds of ash and debris from orbital bombardments. But there were signs of life. Ships moving between the outer planets. Energy, signatures from hidden bases. The human resistance was still fighting. "Sir, we're being scanned," reported Communications Officer Park Ji-on. "Multiple sources. They know we're here." "Open a channel on all human frequencies," Hyun ordered. "This is Admiral Lee Hyun of the Liberation Alliance, calling any human forces in the Sol system." The response came quickly, filled with static and suspicion. "This is Admiral Kim Ji-won, Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Hyun felt a wave of relief. His old commander was alive. "Admiral Kim, this is Lee Hyun, captain of the battleship Taeguk. Lost at Europa Station 10 years ago." A long pause. "Hyun? That's impossible. Captain Hyun died fighting the Vorthak." "I was captured, sir. Held prisoner for 8 years. For the last 2 years I've been fighting to liberate worlds across Vorthak space. I've returned to help free Earth." "With an alien fleet?" Kim's voice was sharp with suspicion. "How do we know this isn't another Vorthak trick?" "Because, sir, if the Vorthak wanted to destroy the Resistance, they wouldn't need to trick you. They'd just bomb you from orbit like they did Mars." Another pause. Then, "Captain, Admiral Hyun, can you prove you are who you claim to be?" Hyun thought for a moment. "You asked me once why I chose the military instead of becoming a teacher like my father. I told you it was because teachers change one mind at a time. But soldiers can save thousands of lives in a single day. You said that sounded like something a teacher would say." He heard a sharp intake of breath over the channel. "My God, it really is you." "Yes, sir. And I need to talk to you in person. Both fleets, weapons down, neutral meeting point. Will you do that for me?" Yes, but Hyun, if this is a trap?" "Then you'll do what you've always done, sir. You'll fight until there's nothing left to fight with." They met on the neutral station that had once been a civilian research facility. Admiral Kim Ji-won looked older, grayer, worn down by 10 years of hopeless war. Commander Park Min-ho was with her, along with several other officers Hyun recognized. Hyun came with his command staff, Kesahai, Lumara, Sylvan, and Vector. The humans stared at the aliens with barely concealed hostility. "Explain," Kim said simply. So Hyun told them. He told them about the prison on Kethmaran. about learning to work with other species, about the rebellion that had become an alliance, about the dozens of worlds that had chosen freedom over fear. You're asking us to trust the same species that destroyed our world, Park Min-ho said when Hyun finished. No, Hyun replied. I'm asking you to trust the species that chose to fight against the ones who destroyed our world. How do we know they won't turn on us the moment the Vorthak are defeated? Kes-hai stepped forward. Because, Commander Park, we have seen what happens when species fight each other instead of fighting together. We have all lost our worlds to that kind of thinking. The Keth-hai homeworld was destroyed 3 years before Earth fell, Hyun explained. Lum-Ara's people lost their star system to Vorthak planet crackers. Sylvan watched the Empire burn her world's forests and poison its soil. We do not seek to rule or conquer, added Lum-Ara, her energy form flickering with sincerity. We seek only to ensure that no other species suffers as we have suffered. Admiral Kim studied the aliens for a long moment. And him? She asked, pointing at Vekthor. He's Vorthak. Why should we trust a member of the species that committed genocide against us? Vekthor removed his helmet, revealing the scarred face beneath. Because, Admiral, I have seen what the Empire's way of ruling leads to. Death, fear, the destruction of everything that makes life worth living. These beings taught me that there is another way. Which is to fight for each other instead of against each other, to build instead of destroy, to choose cooperation over conquest. Kim looked at Hyun. You believe this? Really? I've seen it work, sir. For 2 years I've watched species that had been enemies work together as allies. I've seen Vorthak officers choose freedom over empire. I've seen former slaves become leaders. It works because it's based on choice, not force. And if we refuse to join your alliance, then we'll still fight to free Earth, Hyun said simply. Because that's what allies do. They don't abandon each other just because the partnership isn't convenient. Before Kim could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Park Yeon's voice crackled over Hyun's communicator. Sir, massive Vorthak fleet dropping out of hyperspace. It's the Imperial Core Fleet. 500 ships led by War Emperor Thrakfon himself. Looks like the decision's been made for us, Kim said grimly. Can your alliance fleet stand against that? Alone? No, Hyun admitted. Together with the human resistance? Maybe. If we're smart, coordinated, and very lucky. The Battle of Saul lasted 18 hours. The Vorthak came expecting to crush a broken human resistance and a small rebel fleet. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy unlike anything they had ever faced. Human ships that knew every asteroid and debris field in the system. Alliance. Vessels with crews trained in combined species tactics. Most importantly, they found an enemy that fought not for conquest, but for the right of all species to be free. Vorthak's 7th Fleet is breaking formation, reported Sensor Officer Kim. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Denied, Hyun said firmly. Open a channel to them. The Vorthak fleet commander appeared on screen, his armor scorched and damaged. Admiral Hyun, we have fought honorably. Grant us passage to leave this system. I'll grant you something better, Hyun replied. Join us. Help us end this war once and for all. Join you? The commander seemed stunned. You would trust us after we attacked your homeworld? I would trust you to choose freedom over slavery. I would trust you to decide that your people deserve better than an empire built on fear and death. The commander looked around his damaged bridge at his tired crew, at the displays showing the futility of continued fighting. What would you require of us? The same thing I require of everyone in the Alliance. Fight for each other. Protect the innocent. Choose cooperation over conquest. One by one, the Vorthak ships powered down their weapons, then dozens more. Then entire battle groups began defecting as news of the offer spread through their communications. War Emperor Thrakfon found himself commanding a shrinking fleet as more and more of his ships chose the alliance over the Empire. In the end, he faced a choice: retreat with the few ships still loyal to him or watch his entire fleet join the rebels. He chose retreat. Let him go, Hyun ordered when pursuit was suggested. He's not the real enemy anymore. Fear is the enemy. Hatred is the enemy. The idea that might makes right is the enemy. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Earth to establish the Mutual Defense Compact. Species that had been enemies for centuries sat down together to write the charter for a new kind of galactic civilization. Article 1 read Admiral Kim Ji-won, who had been chosen to lead the drafting committee. No species shall dominate another. All beings have the right to choose their own path. Article 2, continued Kesai, disputes shall be resolved through negotiation and compromise, not force. Article 3, added Lamara, all species shall contribute to the common defense according to their abilities and receive protection according to their needs. When the ceremony was over, Hyun stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt space station, looking out at the mixed fleet that now protected Earth. Human ships flew alongside Kethai vessels. Fourth-act defectors worked with Lumari engineers. Former enemies had become trusted allies. No regrets? Asked Park Min-ho, joining him at the viewport. About what? 10 years in prison, losing everything you knew, coming back to find your world in ruins. Hyun thought about this. If I hadn't been captured, the Alliance never would have formed. Billions more people would have died in a war that could have lasted centuries. So it was worth it? Every species in the galaxy now has the chance to choose freedom over fear. Every world has allies instead of conquerors. Every child can grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is stronger than conquest. Hyun smiled. Yes, it was worth it. What now? The war is over. The Empire is finished. What does Admiral Hyun do in peacetime? Hyun looked out at the stars, where ships from dozens of species worked together to patrol and protect. Remember what I told Admiral Kim about teachers and soldiers? I think it's time I became a teacher again. Teaching what? That the strongest people are the ones who fight for others, that the best leaders are the ones who serve, that sometimes the greatest victory is turning your enemy into your friend. Park Min-ho nodded. Your father would be proud. I hope so, Hyun said quietly. Because this isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. We've proven that species can work together instead of fighting each other. Now we have to build something that will last.